welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective. On today's episode, we have Cameron Dietz. Cameron is the Associate Director of Sports Performance, where he works with baseball at the University of Cincinnati. But I was introduced to him and referred to him actually by one of our previous guests, Andrew Hacker. So if you had listened to Andrew Hacker's episode, you would know that there was a strength coach who greatly influenced him and even convinced him to go into strength and conditioning and understand that it was a great career path. And so it's always very exciting for me to be able to speak to people who have influenced others within the field. And Cameron is certainly one of those people. Cam really is a large presence on social media as well, too. So if you as a coach are interested in posting on social media or understanding what the benefits of social media are for you as a coach, I think this is a fantastic episode for you because we really dive into that and then a couple of other fun things along the way. So I really enjoyed my conversation with Cam, just as always I do. But this one left me, feeling very refreshed and energized for the day. And I hope it does the same for you. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Cameron Dietz. He's Assistant Director of Sports Performance at the University of Cincinnati. Cameron, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we got to shout out Andrew Hacker here, right? Because he was the one who introduced you to the show, and then we were able to connect and make sure that you were a guest. So thank you, Andrew. We appreciate you greatly.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Good dude.
Yeah, it was a fantastic episode. It was great to speak with him, and he's already a great coach, but you can tell he's going to grow into a fantastic one. So I'm excited to see him continue on. Well, it's not about Andrew; it's about you, right? And we want to make sure that we dive into the world of Cameron. So, can you just give us a background of your history in strength and conditioning, and then what's brought you to Cincinnati?
Yeah, so I got started. Let's see, my first internship was at it was a private facility. My senior year in undergrad. And then I was working private. I was working as a personal trainer. Like I was selling personal training sessions at 24-hour fitness, like just trying to and applying to like all these minor league strength and conditioning jobs. And eventually I got a hold of Coach Alvarez, who was the head strength coach with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I hit him up and I said, "Hey, I know you don't have a job opening, but like I really want to just come down and pick your brain, and if you'll take the time to meet with me." So I spent all the money that I had saved up on flights, renting cars, hotels, and I flew out to Florida at the end of spring training in 2016, something like that, 2016, 17. And so I flew out there on a whim, met with him, was able to meet with the Houston Astros while I was out there. I met Rachel Balkovich while I was out there when she was still strength and conditioning coach. Met with Joe Haggerty, who was the head strength coach with the Baltimore Orioles. And I just emailed a bunch of people and just trying to, put a face to a name. And I knew that there weren't any jobs, but I brought, these resumes. And I remember sitting there with him in his office, and I had a copy of my like resume, cover letter, all this stuff. And he goes, he's like, "What you got in the manila folder?" And I was about to hand it to him, and he's like, "Let me guess. It's a cover letter, resume references. Your resume has that, you played baseball and that you've worked at a private facility and that, you specialize with baseball players or something like that. And, that's kind of what you've been applying with." I'm like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "The first thing you need to do if you're serious about this, when you get back to your hotel, is to go and find the first Division I football internship that you can find and take it." And he's like, "It's not about working with baseball only. It's not about the sport specific piece." He's like, "You need experience running and working and managing the flow of, or even just seeing how it works with a large team." And he's like, "And you're not going to get that experience any better than working with a football team." So I went back to my hotel. Sorry, my dog's moving around on the island here on the ottoman. So I went back to my hotel. First one that I found was University of Delaware. Applied. Ted Perlak responded, emailed me back. I went out and I interned with Joe Barinello and Ted Perlak and other guys there, and spent the summer out there. And the rest is history. Went from Delaware, came back to Colorado, was working at a high school while working at a gas station overnights. So I was working in the afternoon at a high school, sleeping during the day, working overnights at a gas station. Um, and then I eventually got the grad assistant position at Northern Colorado. Spent 2 years there, spent a summer at North Texas because finding a full time job is still not a guarantee after having your master's. So I interned out there with Coach Womack, Coach Gold, both Golds. Really good group out there. And then spent 3 years at Utah Valley University, spent 2 years at Eastern Michigan, and now I'm here at Cincinnati. I've been here since February. So,
That's a wild journey. I love
yeah.
it, man. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Well, the advice to go to a football internship, especially from a baseball strength coach, I think is pretty unique. I think ultimately a lot of people use football as an avenue to advance their careers, but at the end of the day, that's not the most common path. For if you're trying to apply for baseball specifically, did you feel like you got everything that you were looking for out of that internship?
I learned a lot. I learned a lot of how I wanted to. Part of its connections. I also learned a lot about um, things that I thought I could do better. I think like you got to look at every situation and learn something from it. Um, so, did I walk away being like, perfect, this is the exact perfect conjugate type program that I want to run for the rest of my career? Like, no. But I learned how to organize, even making like your first real like sheet. I remember looking back at like programming and stuff. And when I was working out of high school, I think I finally started using Excel. But the only reason that I was using Excel instead of Word was because of that internship. There's a lot of things in terms of how much time you need to set things up and what kind of equipment you can and can't use and things that you got to modify. Like if we had a day where it was raining, how do we still get some change of direction work in, even though it's on a basketball court or conditioning or whatever. Like I think that it's not always like exactly X's and O's what you're learning from your internship. Sometimes it's learning how you would do things differently too. So
Yeah, I think those are the most valuable experiences, right? And like you said, like just small tweaks and things that you find out. I remember my third internship is where I even got how I write out my daily cards, and just like small things that you can pick up, and I feel like ultimately adjust to how you coach and make it way more fun. You even remind me of a small thing. I had a friend who I wrote programs for, and I sent him a Word doc as well, and he was
yep,
a Division 3 jumper, and like it was the worst program in history. I think. I mean, at that point, it was awful, and I sent it over. And I remember his strength coach was like, "Why are you doing this guy's workouts?" Like I was like a junior exercise science student at the time, and my buddy was like, "Yeah, I don't know, I just kind of like him." And so
yeah.
it's funny how you adjust and adapt as a coach. And so, were you working full time as a personal trainer before you started this whole process?
I mean, personal training's hard because it's like what is full time? Like, do you have 40 hours
Mm.
worth of clients every week? Um, I was I was selling enough. I was selling enough because it's a sales job. It's not. I didn't like even when I look back, like the training I took seriously, and there was like progression in it, and there were aspects that you learn through your education in terms of progressive overload and making sure that things are like the order of operations in terms of the highest required stimulus at the beginning to finishing at the end, and finishing with some cardio stuff like that, whatever. um yeah, I mean, there was some of that, but a lot of it was just like how well can you sell yourself. Like the best car salesmen are going to be really good personal trainers. It doesn't matter. I mean, it helps if you look a certain way, but in general you got to be able to talk to people. I got really lucky, and I had a decent group of clients that liked to train with me, and so I made enough doing it. But I wouldn't say that I was working. I wasn't training like 40 hours worth a week. So
Yeah, well, it's a great point, and I mean, I think it leads me into working into the gas station overnight. Like those things are incredibly tough to go through, right? When you're trying to look for the bigger goal, what kept you motivated to keep pushing, keep trying to get to the next position, so that you can reach where you are today?
um, man, I mean, it's funny because the motivation then at that point was like I knew that this is exactly what I wanted to do. like I really enjoyed, especially at that point. I had shadowed a little bit in Colorado. I had worked obviously at Delaware. Um, at that point, and when I was out there in spring training with those teams, I was able to see like what they were doing. I was with the Pirates for like 2 full days. Like I went to a staff meeting at 4:30 in the morning. Like was with them throughout the entire day. Was watching them train. Like I saw Andrew McCutcheon when he was there, like walking into the weight room, and it was like, oh shit, so you see like these big time names, you see these big time guys, and it was kind of like this is what I need to do. Like he laid it out. Carlo was like, if you go and get an internship and then you go and be a grad assistant, like I'll hire you. I will if you do these things, I'll find a job for you in our minor league system. And by the time that I got to that point, he had left the Pirates, but I met so Fury Leva is the minor league coordinator with the Philadelphia Phillies, and we've talked a little about like, hey, do you want to still do minor league ball, that kind of thing. And at that point, I had changed my goals because early I wanted to like travel on a bus and like I wanted to be as close to a baseball player as possible. And like when you're a minor league strength coach, you are traveling with the team, you're on a bus, depending on the situation, depending on where you're at, you're training guys at a Planet Fitness in between games. Like, you know, you're doing some like you're doing some hardcore shit in terms of like facilities and setup and being creative and using equipment that you travel with, even if it's just bands and stuff. So that's what I wanted. And then I really enjoyed college athletics. And so by the time that I finished as a GA, I really hadn't had as much interest in baseball, like pro baseball. Like the doors never closed. The guy before me, Thomas Gentles, he was here. He was at Coastal with baseball. He was here with baseball, and now he's the minor league coordinator with the Texas Rangers. So, it's not to say that like I would never consider doing pro baseball. I've had conversations recently about it, but at the end of the day, I'm happy in college right now. So
No, that makes complete sense, and I think it's different for everybody, right? Based off of what exactly you want out of your career. It's funny. I'll even talk with our strength and conditioning coordinator here, right? And he has no clue why I want to travel with basketball. He's like, I think I would rather be home every single weekend. I'm like, I understand that, but at the same time, I don't have kids, and I think it's really fun, So it's
yeah.
different for each coach. You spoke about that being your motivation then. What's your motivation now?
Yeah, so right now, my biggest like I do like this daily tweet thing, and recently I said like college strength and conditioning is hard. Like make sure you have a really strong why. Um, I think that for a long time it was elevating myself, getting to a position where I felt like I was valued. Um, it's people talk all the time like the pay is probably too low for a lot of people. There are some people that are making probably too much. It's a really hard career, but once you kind of make it to a certain level, unless you suck, you're going to end up sticking it out. You're going to stay there. And right now, I would say that I feel like I've landed in a position where, obviously I'll take as much like salary as possible to live as comfortably as possible. But like, I finally feel like I'm making enough. I have a title and I'm able to help our department in more than just like with my teams. I do a lot of other things for our department. Um, so, but that's all to say, like this position, that's why I wanted this position. That's why I gladly took this position. I interviewed for it, wanted it, worked my tail off for it. But the motivation that I have now in terms of keeping this position, or even if I were to try and move up or move on or whatever, is all just going to be about like family. It's all going to be, is my wife happy? If we decide to have kids, like, are we in a position where, things are expensive? Can I afford to, live where we want to live? Can I afford to do the things that we want to do? If we decide to have kids, can we afford to do that? So it's gone from just me to us and figuring out, where do we want to be? Are we happy where we're at? So,
I think it's really great to mention that kind of second level because I mean, for myself, I feel in a similar spot, right? I feel like in a place where I'm incredibly happy, I feel valued, right, and I'm able to live in a comfortable lifestyle. And for other coaches I speak with, I feel like that jump to that second level is kind of what culls the herd a little bit, right? It's what you see where you see a lot of strength coaches drop off. So it's nice. There's a strong comfortability with being at the second level, but it's not a lack of motivation from there on out, right? I think, like you
Right.
said, you can find your family, you can still strive to be the best. I think, I've mentioned this before, but I'd love to be the best basketball strength coach in the country, and I'm sure you'd love to be the best baseball strength coach in the country.
Right.
But I think to have a little bit more comfort behind it too is almost more motivating. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah. I mean, you know, uh, I've got a friend of mine, and I always give him a hard time because I always give him a hard time because I feel like he's always looking for like what's next. Um, it's funny because when I was at Eastern, I wasn't really applying. Like there were things that came to me. I think the further along you go, the less you apply and look for things. Like the grass is, hopefully you're happy where you're at and you work your tail off where you're at. And again, like the grass isn't always greener and, all those different kinds of sayings, but you'd be foolish not to at least have an ear open. So if somebody hits you up and says, "Hey, like, would you be interested in this?" It's, then you make that decision. Um, so yeah, I think when you're first starting out, it's like, how do I get to the next level? How do I take a step up? How do I get a little bit more money? How do I get to a little bit bigger conference? How do I work with less teams, or how do I work with more important teams? And how do I get there? And then once you're kind of there and you feel good, then it's like, okay, cool. Now I can be pretty selective. I'm not actively like looking at any job postings. Like the only time that I see them is when somebody sends it to me and says, "Hey, do you know anything about this?" But it's people that I mentor and stuff. It's not me actively looking. If somebody calls me, it's like, okay, then we'll address it there, and I'll talk to Kelsey about it then. But it's not like a active search. Whereas I give my buddy shit because I feel like he's like constantly like, "Oh, did you see this? Did you see this?"
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, like be where you're at for a second. So
And I think that's what leads to burnout the most too, right? Is constantly looking at what other opportunities they have. Because I think anybody listening who is even within the collegiate or pro sector, it's like somebody just like your friend, right? Who's always looking for something
yep.
else, right? And then at the end of the day, like if you can't enjoy where you're at, it's just going to be brutal. Like it's going to be the day in and day out. It's going to be more of a grind. And so I agree with you. I think it's very interesting to see people kind of. Try to navigate the realm of strength and conditioning without letting certain things come to them. For me, every single time something's come to me, that's the position I took next, versus trying to actively apply. So I think it makes a difference. You mentioned your daily tweets. I think I think I've seen your Instagram posts. I love what you post on Instagram, and to be able to see what you provide for your athletes. What is the motivation for you to post to Instagram and do Twitter, I guess now X?
X, yeah. So, at first it was like something that I enjoyed putting out there and showing people, whether it was like people that I went to like school with, or just being able to post things and share like what I do. And then it turned into like, I think athletes really enjoy seeing themselves online. Like they share it, they like it, they I have guys all the time, like if they know that an intern or myself's like filming something afterwards, they'll be, "Hey, can you send that to me?"
Mm.
And like a former athlete of mine, he just kind of started his own like little training page, and he just posted a clip of reels, and those reels were all videos that were taken, like whether I took them or I had an intern take them. But he's asked for them over time, and it's you it's one thing to like see yourself progress numbers wise, but it's another thing to see. Oh, here she goes. It's another thing to see the videos of it. I've got let's see, he's going to be a sophomore pitcher. He'll ask for his videos and stuff all the time because he just wants to see kind of where he's at, and then he'll be like, "Dang, like I look way different than I did, 4 months ago." And it's like, yeah, you do. So like we don't do the before and after pictures as much. Like I guess we could, but these guys are able to see it online themselves. So that's part of the motivation, is the documentation of it, for them. And then I'd say the other big piece is going to be, now it's marketing. Now it's like a living, breathing resume. Like my suggestion to all young strength coaches: you have no original ideas. I don't think I do either. Occasionally I might put something out and then I'll see somebody, Michael Boyle will post that, he posted it, last week or 3 months ago or something like that. So it's like, that shouldn't stop you from posting, because you should be posting things that maybe get me to think, or you to think, or Hacker to think, or even Michael Boyle to think about something in a different context or different situation, or maybe the way that we set things up or you set things up is a little bit different. And it's like, damn, I really like that. I mean, I think that social media is great because like you take a bunch of motivation and stuff. You take a bunch of different ideas. Like Coach Stefano was at Delaware for a long time. He's working tactical now. There's a lot of stuff that I stole from him, and like we talk back and forth quite a bit. Um, and there's a lot of things that while he was at Delaware, I mean, he can't post as much now that he's tactical, but like I've taken a ton of stuff from him. The basis of my programming is kind of based on, if you see whatever Zach DeCant will post, typically I'll be doing something similar. Whether it be because we both have a good foundational belief in some of the same things. But at the end of the day, like I think it's a living, breathing resume, and social media is a great way to get your name out there. Because I know for a fact that when recruits look at Cincinnati, my coaches give them my Instagram, and they will go on and they will follow me, and then they'll look at the videos and they'll be like, okay, cool, like this guy definitely does baseball specific stuff. Like, yeah, there's some baseball specific things, but in general, like I'm just trying to help you be a better athlete, right? So it's networking that way. If it's a job thing, I've had people hit me up on Instagram, hey, would you ever be interested in this? Or hey, do you have an intern? I know that you do really good stuff. Do you have an intern that we're looking for a GA? It's all these different layers of networking. And LinkedIn, I have one, I guess, but like it's, to me, Instagram is networking more than anything. It's a living, breathing resume. So
I agree wholeheartedly. And as somebody who posts myself, like I can give just a quick example. Like, when I applied for being the podcast host here at Samson, the main thing that they went and looked at was our social medias, right? And they said, we've seen videos, and my videos are different. Mine are just me talking to a camera. But at the same time, they use that to be able to see, okay, well, he can talk in front of the camera and doesn't get shy, right? And so that was something that helped put me over the edge to get something that I really wanted, So I don't really see a lot of negatives with posting on social media. I think it's kind of something that maybe older coaches are a little bit hesitant to do just because they're not as familiar. But you and I mean, I'm sure we both grew up with social media or started the start of social media. And this was back when in Facebook you'd post what you ate every morning, right? And you would poke
oh
people and
it's
stuff. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I went back a little bit, and it was bad. It was like just past my like uh anatomy final, and it's like, why did I need to share that?
Yeah.
um and yeah, so it's funny. I mean, I remember MySpace. I remember
Yep.
putting a song over your profile on MySpace, and how cool that was to be able to change the, like, it was almost like a little bit of uh like programming, where you could change the backgrounds of your MySpace page, and it could be like some car, or it could be some like anime thing. Like, yeah, so yeah, social media has changed a lot, but um, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're really bad, or you're really bad at communicating what you're doing, or you're not taking the time to post quality things, then it could probably backfire. But in general, like my suggestion to all of our younger coaches is to start posting early and often, because you have to do it consistently to get good at it. Like if I look back at my old videos, they're not nearly as good as they are now. Um, Both content and the way they flow, and all those things. So post early, post often, get good at it, and then you never know. Like I had an interview at a Power Five baseball job before I got this one, and it was literally because a pitching coach followed me on Twitter
Yep.
and really liked what I was posting and was like, "Hey, you should apply to this job." And didn't work out for various reasons, but like the only reason I even had that opportunity or that phone call was because of Twitter. So
No,
X.
exactly, and it's yeah, um, but I just think again, like you said, it opens up tons of opportunities. I think the recruiting aspect is really important too, right? Because at that point, I've had similar stuff where recruits have come in, they've already seen our weight room on my social media, they've already talked to me, or what they feel like is talk to me, right? They feel like they know what I can produce, and so it even breaks down a little bit of a barrier because recruits can sometimes be a little socially awkward or maybe nervous. It's a long day. And so it's just that small little thing that helps you connect with them even more. And you just don't even know how much it truly affects, I think in a positive way, what you're trying to do and what you're doing with recruits. And I can't tell you how many times sport coaches have talked about like, oh man, I need to post more, because I would like for our recruits to see these things. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just a net positive. And at the same time too, like, I don't know if this is the case for you, but it's been a great source of side income for me as well. Whether signing with, somebody to make separate posts for a specific product or to have people come on and coach, like it's been something that has allowed me to have like some fun money, like and do
Yeah.
stuff like you said, like enjoy life. I think it makes a difference.
No, I mean, I definitely think that it's and it's not as glamorous as like the influencers where they're like, use this code.
Yeah.
It's no like NIL stuff. Like there's still some work involved. Like I do some mentorship stuff. Um, but at the end of the day, like I think that there's very few downsides to it. There's a lot of pros to it. On the recruiting piece, it's funny because if I can help us get one recruit that wouldn't have signed, and that one recruit helps us win one extra game, and that one extra game is in a regional to go to a super or to go from a super to a college world series, like it was all worth it,
Yep.
all those like all that time spent thinking of what to post or just putting together video clips or whatever the case is, it was all worth it if that's that one recruit that signs for you. So I think that it's definitely something that I care about because of those things. Like I want, um, again, like just to sum it all up, like my athletes like looking at it. It's a living, breathing resume, and then the recruiting piece is big. Like I don't have to send like a montage. Like just go look at my Instagram, and it sounds like sometimes I feel like when I tell like I'll say, hey, like if you guys have other questions, like parents, if you guys have questions, whatever, like absolutely hit me up, like or hit the coaches up to whatever those depending on what year they're what class they are, and then and then if you have any questions on like what we actually do, like the bones of it, like all I'm very transparent. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, like you'll see a lot of stuff, and I'll have parents follow me on Twitter or Instagram and Twitter, and those kids will sign like within
Yeah.
about a week, and I'll get like a text from the coaches like, hey, just signed, hey, just signed so and so, like whatever. Is it because like our weight room's great? Is it because I'm great? Like I just want to play a small role in it, and if I'm a little bit more available than somebody else, and that's the reason that you chose Cincinnati over whatever different school, then it's like, okay, cool, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's the same with almost the rest of strength and conditioning, right? It's hard to quantify exactly what you did and how much that led to the process of winning. But at the end of the day, if it's something that can help, then why not do it? It's
Yeah.
something that can make you better. So we talk about difference makers, social media being one of them. Obviously, you took in this new position at Cincinnati. When you first came onto campus, what were your first couple steps that you took when you first got there?
I think any job, it doesn't matter what time of year you start. The most important thing is getting to know your athletes. First step in that's probably going to be names. I mean, I started the week before our first game. Our coach Bishop didn't travel me that first weekend because he was like, "Hey, I just want you to figure out like where to park, where to go grocery shopping. Like, don't worry about coming to Jacksonville with us, but like, I do want you to come to Coastal the following weekend with us." So within that first week, I mean, I'm sitting there at practice. I've got the roster pulled up on my phone, and I'm like looking at guys. I confused two guys because they were both the only two guys wearing red helmets. And I was like, Like, but I'm sitting there, I'm studying that. I had an intern that had been with them that knew all their names. So I'm standing there in between sets of, trap bar deadlift. And I'm like, hey, like and I'm like, I'm quizzing myself. I'm like, that's Max Palmieri. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, is that Carrington Cross? And he's like, I was like, okay, that's KC then. Okay. So I think that that's huge. Like you've got to learn names because your message, if you come up to somebody after a set and you go, hey, like, keep the bar a little bit closer. If you go up to him and say, hey, Casey, I know that you're moving a lot of weight. It's really good, but hey, make sure that you keep that bar really close on the way up as well on your RDLs, whatever. And, and it goes a lot further when you can address them by Casey or Carrington or whatever versus like, hey, what was your name again? Okay, cool, yeah. Hey, make sure you do this. It's whether it's your first day, your third day. Like I got all their names down probably within 48 hours. But if I go back, like on the tabs on my phone, I had all the roster pulled up. I had two tabs pulled up. I had one in numerical order, and then I had one in class order. And then I had it on my laptop as well. So if I was in my office, I was sitting there looking through the roster. Luckily, women's golf is a small team. That was the other team that I had when I first got here. And I learned women's golf within the first like 20 minutes of our lift.
Yep.
And so from there, but I was like constantly like Winnie, Ruby, like I was like using their names. Like I think that that's huge. Like you got to learn their names. That was something that I really valuable that I learned when I was shadowing at Colorado College years ago. So that was number one. Number two, I would say is, making sure that you try and like meld what you want and kind of and marry that into what they're doing or what they've been doing. I think it's important for them to have some sense or some semblance of like comfort in terms of like what they've been doing. So when I first got here, they could pretty much choose between. They had a lot of choices. They could do essentially it was a bilateral squat. So like if you want to do front squat, you can. If you want to do safety squat bar, you can. If you want to do trap bar deadlift, you can. And then on the flip side, it's like, hey, barbell RDL or glute bridge. You can kind of choose. I don't typically do as much of those just big broad choices. I'll help guys make those decisions based on how they move and what I think is going to be the best option for them. So there's still variability, but I don't just give this blanket like, hey, you can do this or this today, whatever you want. But I kept that in there for a little while because I wanted them to still have that freedom, that choice, that comfort of like, well, this is what we've done. So I think that that's important. And then, the last piece is obviously going to be the trust with like your coach. I wanted to come in and, the situation that I was leaving at Eastern, like I could have, I could have said, hey, we're going to do Bosu ball jumping jacks, or we're going to do we're going to go to the diving board. We're going to go to the pool and we're going to work on our acrobatics. And our coaches and players would have been like, it sounds like BS, but like, let's do it because Cam thinks there's some value in this. So like I had a lot of trust with the athletes. I had a lot of trust, a lot of faith from the coaches. So when I got here, it was a little bit different because it was like, hey, I want to do some sprints. When do you want me to do them? And they're like, oh, like let's figure that out. Let's wait a week. Let's just see how, the season just started. The week goes by. Hey, can we do them before practice, whatever, and it ended up working out where I just started working it into our warm up and we kind of microdose sprint, our speed sessions because I couldn't get like a legitimate time to do it. Now this year it's like, hey, what do you need? However you want to do it. Coach comes down, we talk in my office, we'll talk in his office. There's a lot of trust there. There's a lot of faith there. And this summer did that because we had a solid group of guys stay and it's night and day how different these guys look. So look, feel, play, all that stuff. So, you got to earn trust with the athletes. You got to earn trust with the coaches. I think it's important to marry that. Like, what have they been doing and kind of like work in what you want to do. I probably flipped the script a little bit quicker than I would normally, but it was because I had one of our kid that got drafted, probably best hitter on the team, arguably the best hitter in the Big 12 last year. He came from Eastern. So I worked with him at Eastern, and then he came to Cincinnati, and he's the one that hit me up about the job in the first place. And um, he was like, Cam, like, this isn't your program. Like, trust me, these guys want to get better. Like, let's do your stuff. I'm like, I don't know. And then the coach was like, hey, like, if it's like, this is your thing, like, you do it. Like, if you want to do something else. And then finally, one of the other guys, pitchers that I had just met, I'd known him for like 12 days. He was like, hey, when are we going to do the stuff that we saw on your Instagram? Like, that's what we were wanting to do. Like, we want to do that stuff. Okay, cool. Let's do it. So like within about 2 weeks, it was full bore, like whatever the secret sauce is, like it was Cam's program though. And there are some similarities. It's not like the programming before was like totally different, but yeah, I think kind of slowly ramp into what you want to do because they have experience, they have a training age about them, and their experiences in the weight room and what they're good at and what they are comfortable with. This movement versus this movement, or this much volume or versus this much volume, or accommodated resistance versus what is that. So I think those are the three big things: the trust in the athletes, the coaches, and then obviously making sure that your programming kind of slowly gets to where what you see, what you envision, what you want.
I think that's a great lesson in being true to yourself. Like it's obviously you want to make a transition and you want to do it in a way that's appropriate, but at the same time, like it's they want you want to run your program, and so it was nice that you had the clear communication to be able to do that and give you the ability to make that transition quicker. Because again, coming in season's not easy. I hate changing in season programming. It's probably my least favorite time, probably because it's what I'm worst at, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's a very nerve wracking time to kind of change things around. But once you were true to yourself and true to your program, that's what allows you to have the most success.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's what you're doing. I mean, gosh, at this point, right? I know what I'm doing. I know what works. 90%, 95% of what I'm doing, I know works. It's that extra like 5% where I'm like, this might work.
Yeah.
This might help. Right. And that's kind of what's nice about the summer is like you really get to throw it was more this summer. It was more like 85%. I knew everything we were doing was going to be like helpful for athleticism, but it's really like the specific of like, could this help us throw harder? And then guys are throwing 96 for the first time. And it's like, oh, maybe it was that. But you can't point to that one thing. And that's what's frustrating about strength conditioning. It's like, well, gosh, maybe it's because they long tossed more this summer than they ever have, or so it's hard. You can't pinpoint anything. And that's like, I love this job, but like sometimes it's tough because it's like, I just wish it were a little bit easier, black and white, where it was like, yep, this is the sauce. Let's do this. And it's like, cool. Yeah, I'm great because we do this. But in general, yeah, like as a practitioner, you have a process, you have a program, you have a plan. And when you get to implement your plan, your program, your process, that you're going to get those results that you want. So it is nice to be able to step in and be able to do it. So.
I wish nothing more than it was black and white, right? That'd be awesome. And I think about unanswered questions at the end of the year, or at the end of my life, like what the main questions I'd be is like, okay, give me a percentage of how much I actually helped this team win, because then I'd be really happy to know that, right? Either way, good or bad. But, unfortunately that's not the case, but you can get some objective data, and you can get things that do give you feedback. And obviously you're a big advocate for sports science. Like what's the importance for sports science in your program?
Yeah, I think most of my decisions are based around it. I don't. Somebody had asked me. I do like a weekly Q&A on Instagram, and somebody asked me yesterday. They said, what are the exercises that you wonder at max? When I was at Utah Valley, I had two softball players. Both there were other reasons why, but two of them got injured doing one rep max trap bar deadlift. There's nothing wrong with trap bar deadlift. There's nothing wrong with it's always going to be how it's done. One thing leads to another, not enough sleep. There's whatever certain reasons for what happened, but at the same time, I have not like one rep max since then. And when I say that, I'm not saying like we don't work up to heavy singles or we don't do heavy enough weights to know, I would rather, if you have the ability and the science and the technology, I would rather track over time the velocity of certain things. Or, hey, we're going to work up to a heavy double. And, 5 weeks ago, like over the summer is a great example. If you got to keep the velocity above point 0.4, and 5 weeks later, you've got 30 or 40 more pounds on the bar and you're moving it at the same or a faster velocity, that's a pretty good indication that you've gotten stronger. At the same time, if you've got the technology, especially like force plates, you can see even more specific to, am I producing more power? That's black and white. Like I'm producing, my peak propulsive power has gone up, and or my jump height, or whatever things you want to look at. You can look as specific or as basic as possible, or as you want. But having that consistent technology and reliable equipment allows you to see, okay, am I improving what I'm trying to improve? At the end of the day, if you're just guessing the entire year, right, there's going to be some guesswork. Like you're trying to balance baseball and strength and conditioning. There's going to be some, back and forth, give and take. But in general, I can track these trends throughout the entire year and I can see whether we're improving or we're not. And if we're not improving, how long is that going to go before I got to make a change? Or before it's a serious conversation. I don't have, like, anytime somebody has a down day, I'm not like, what's going on? Like, you okay?
Yeah.
Everything good at home? Like, it's not that deep. Like, you're going to have bad days. Now, if you have bad weeks, then it's like, hey, like, you good? You eating enough? Like, your body weight's going down too. Like, what's going on? Let's talk to a nutritionist. Let's talk to sports psych. Like, figure out whatever. So, yeah, I mean, everything that I'll do is kind of dictated around sports science. Like, I want to know, are guys throwing harder? I like to hear about TrackMan and the spin rates and obviously the exit velos, and if guys are actually seeing results on the field, because it's one thing to have, these improvements in the weight room, but like it's a totally different thing to see it translate to the field. Like, you have a weight room warrior that comes in and like they jump, you know, 25 inches on a jump mat, or on a force plate, and they, reverse lunge 2.5 times their body weight, and they can bench double their body weight, and then they still suck at baseball. It's like, I don't want that. So being able to see it and translate it to the field and be able to say, yeah, we're getting better on the field. And that's the most important thing to me. So it's not just the technology in the weight room, it's the technology that we have out on the field as well.
Mm. And so, you have a situation where a guy's down for a day or maybe 2 days. How do you approach that with those guys? Do you typically keep the numbers to yourself? Do you have a quick conversation with them about kind of progress not being linear? How does that conversation look for you?
If so, I don't keep anything to myself. These guys, I've taught them what we're looking at and what it is and why. Like, if we're paying attention to jump height and peak propulsive power, these guys know what they did earlier this week. And we jump either squat jump or counter movement jump every single day in the weight room. So that's 3 to 5 times a week that we're going to jump on the force plates. And so they know if those numbers are up or down. I like Hawkins, interface and kind of how they show those trends, and I keep it as like last five, so they can see like the progress that they've had in the last 5 sessions and that kind of thing. And a lot of times they're the ones that bring it up. I don't like go in and look at trends every single day. I'll go and look at like the end of the week and see where we're at. If they bring up some kind of concern, I'll talk to them. If I see something that is concerning over, again, I think it's really the trends over like a 2 week period. Because again, I'm not going to overreact on a bad day or even a bad week. I mean, we've got like whooping cough going around like the entire athletic department. It's not just baseball either. So, those numbers are going to be down. Okay, cool. Like, that's fine, but they'll bounce back. Like, my favorite thing about people getting sick is when they bounce back, it's like they bounce back like quite a bit too,
Mhm.
after typically having some time down. So anyways, I don't overreact to it. I'll look at it every week, and then if I see some things that are kind of alarming, um, we have biweekly meetings with sports psych, sports nutrition, academic advising, and it's just kind of a health and wellness meeting that we do as a department. Um, and so, somebody struggling with grades or whatever, you kind of have an idea of what's going on. And if these people are meeting with everybody else in the department, then you also can kind of point to that versus just kind of, hey, like what's going on? Like get yourself together. So
Okay, so this is like the dumbest question, but I just have to ask it, right? Like, what if you could only have one tech that you could use? What would it be?
I guess if I only had one piece of tech, it would be right now. It'd be perch
Hmm.
because you can still jump on perch. They have RSI testing on there. They have various vertical jump testing. So every camera is essentially a jump mat. So it's not going to be as accurate as a force plate. It's not going to be as reliable as a force plate, but they're better than like your old school just jump mats. And you're also able to get VBT out of them. You're also able to get programming now out of them with like Perch Plan. I sound like an advertisement, but like I really do like Perch and what they've put together. Um, so that's probably the one piece of tech that I would go with if I had to just choose one.
It sounds great to me. I think again, if it's not advertisement, if you just like the product,
Yeah,
so it's beneficial. Well, Cameron, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time and diving into some subjects that we don't necessarily get to touch on a lot. So I really appreciate you. If somebody does want to follow you on social media, what would be the best way to do it?
yeah. Coach Cam. I don't know the original person that took it, but I ended up with 10. So Coach Cam 10. That's pretty much Instagram, Twitter, and I think there might be an underscore in there on TikTok. Somebody convinced me finally to do TikTok,
It's a great call.
and that's a slow, steady build right there. So, um, but anyways, yeah, I mean, I'll answer DMs. Like I said, I do a weekly Q&A. I'm really active on there. I'm trying to post, 3 plus times a week. Just really trying to put things out there and put things into perspective in case people have questions. We've got a baseball performance group. Hunter Lakey runs that. Really good group of coaches from, Arkansas to Oklahoma State to really good group of coaches across the country in that group too. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cameron. I appreciate you greatly.
yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.